Hi, and welcome to Take 2 of the IT Provider Network, episode 38 on managing remote employees. I'm having a rough morning here getting the podcast put together, but I did want to thank a few people. Let me start with the folks at ID Agent who were kind enough to list me in their weekly security breach newsletter. I think it's called This Week in Breach, under the heading podcasts we're listening to. So thank you, Kevin Lancaster and the team at ID Agent. I do appreciate the support. I also want to thank you for writing in and giving me some great comments and feedback, some reviews on iTunes. I met some nice new people this week. We had a new listener from Scotland who I was happy to talk to. And it's those cards and letters that make this a lot easier to do at 6 o'clock in the morning. I also wanted to say that I'm heading out to Marketopia's For You to Grow conference tomorrow. So if you're heading down to Clearwater, Florida, hopefully around this hurricane that's coming, I'll be down there. I'd love to run into you, so make sure you look me up. Also, I'm heading out to Robin Robbins' Cybersecurity Marketing Roadshow in Boston in a couple weeks, and I'd be happy to meet with anyone out there.
Welcome to the IT Provider Network. Are you a managed service entrepreneur wanting to take your business to the next level? Do you excel in IT but feel your business management could be better? Join Terry Rossi, where every episode he shares the skills, tips, and tricks that helped him to build a successful worldwide business.
Today, I want to talk about managing virtual teams and some tips that you can use to do that. I found a great article on timedoctor.com talking about managing a high-performance virtual team. So let me just go through some of these suggestions they make. So the first one is compensate for the fact that you're not bumping into each other. And I think this is a really good one. You know, in a real physical office, you have people bumping into you in the lunchroom, walking down the corridor, stopping in your office to say hello. That doesn't happen with a remote team member. So you need to find ways to facilitate that remotely. Chat is a good way to do that. Collaboration tools are a good way to do that. Screen sharing is a good way to do that if you want to share a concept or a problem with a remote team employee. But the big thing to remember is to remember that they're there, right? Include them as part of your team. The second thing they talk about is having a chat room open constantly. So that's pretty easy for us, whether you use Skype or Teams or Slack or HipChat. Keep the chat channels open. We use Teams internally for most of our people, but we also use another tool called Sococo, which our development team uses, and that uses the concept of different rooms. So you can actually see where your employees are in the room. They're either in the lunchroom or maybe they're in a war room or in a particular project room. Very helpful. If you see they're deep in a project room or they're in a stealth room, we call it, then you don't want to bother them. But if they're in the lunchroom, then, you can go and have casual chat with them. The third thing you want to be aware of is that you're not overloading them with that chat or email. Make sure that your team members, if you use Slack or Teams, they're not subscribed to too many channels. Make sure they're not involved in everything. They won't be getting anything done. So be leery of that. The fourth thing is choose the right communication style for that member. Now, this really comes into play a lot with home-based employees or foreign employees, right? So you want to be careful about the communication style you use because some of them won't be appropriate for certain people at certain times. So let me give you an example. Email. If you want something quick, use email. If you need it instant, you might use a chat. If you're doing a meeting, I would recommend a video chat or a video meeting. Obviously, phone calls are good anytime. And other times you might want to just create a recorded video and send that off so that the person can listen to it when it's convenient for them. Use some tools to do that. The one I like right now is use Loom, USELOOM.com. Totally free. Right now anyway, Chrome extension that you can use to quickly record a video with your camera and your screen share and shoot it right off in an email. Use loom.com. You also want to use screen sharing tools. So if you need to share a screen, maybe use TeamViewer or Join.me or GoToMeeting or Zoom or ConnectWise's Connect tool, which is the name escapes me right now. The other thing you want to do is use video conferencing. So every meeting we have in our company, we use video conferencing. It does two things. One, it brings the remote employee into the workspace. They get to see a face with a name. They get to collaborate in real time with their peers. And it also makes everyone on the call stay much more focused. Because they have a camera on them, they're not fiddling with their phone. They're not typing on the keyboard or looking at another screen. I highly recommend you use video conference calls whenever you do a meeting. And speaking of meetings, you want to set up a meeting. You want to have at least a daily huddle with that remote team member, hopefully with the team, but if not, you can do a one-on-one. And then I've talked about this before, but I like a meeting rhythm of a daily huddle, quick stand-up 10-minute meeting, a weekly meeting that in our group is usually about 30 minutes, and then a monthly meeting for either the entire company or the entire division that has some training component to it. So set up a meeting rhythm. You also want to use tools to collaborate on documents and spreadsheets. You know, you can do this with the Microsoft tools now or Google Drive. Either way, use a tool that you can actually get a document up on the screen and collaborate with it. If you can't collaborate in real time in the same document, then at least use a screen share where you can see each other's screens. One of the things that drives me crazy is my senior guys tend to rescue their junior people, but they don't share the knowledge when they're doing it. Use that same time that you're using to fix a problem to educate someone that's more junior in your team. You get a double whammy for it. Well worth the time. Make sure you use a project management system. So hopefully all of you are using some sort of PSA or project management system. Make sure you're using it. Make sure you're holding your remote employees accountable to using your system and your way. Speaking of systems, implement systems. Make sure you have systems that drive everything people do in your company. You need a documented, standardized way of working that you're constantly working on and moving forward with. You also want to allow some degree of flexible work hours, but have consistent hours. So what I mean by that is people working from home typically want or need some flexibility in their working hours, whether they're a working mom or someone that has, someone at home they have to take care of, or young children, doesn't matter. Oftentimes they need some flexibility in their working hours, and that's okay. But I think you really still have to keep core working hours that your whole team can be sure that remote employee is going to be working. Track their work output. Whether or not your team is virtual or not, you need to measure productivity in your group. So what are the key indicators of success? What's the clear outcome that you've communicated to them that you want to get done? What's the measurable goal that you need them to accomplish? And I encourage you not to just track it, but make sure you're checking in regularly about the progress of their work, because if you wait till the end when the deadline is approaching, you might be really disappointed. And had you checked in once a week, followed the progress of the work being done, maybe you could have nipped it in the bud and got the employee on the right track. So again, just track everything that they're doing. One of the other things we use internally, and it's not for a big brother micromanagement thing, but we use a tool called Rescue Time. And it's just really for the employee, but it's to understand what they're spending time doing every day. How long did they have their email open? How long were they on a social media site? How long did they spend in ConnectWise? Take a look at Rescue Time. Try to get your culture and your employees to have a culture where they're cognizant of the time they're spending on their computer and what they're actually doing and getting done. So the next tip is organize a system of overlapping times for communicating in different time zones. And I talked about this a little bit. You need to have time, hopefully a good part of your day, where the entire work staff is working. So for us, it's pretty easy. We have employees from New Jersey to California. That's 3 time zones. We just make everyone work East Coast time. So if you have to, if you're in California, you have to start your day at 6 a.m, sometimes 5 a.m, but you're done at 2 p.m. So you're working 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 East Coast time, but you have your afternoons to yourself. So that's kind of the trade-off we make with our employees. Now, it's a little bit harder if your employees in India or the Philippines. They're typically 12 hours apart or up to 12 hours apart, I guess I should say. So you have to find some overlapping window. It won't be the whole day, but it can be some part of the day. Next tip is to do a quarterly review. See how your team members are coping with working remotely. You know, it's lonely sometimes when you work remotely from home. And if your company is not doing a really good job of making them feel like a team member and making them feel like part of the team, then it's very easy for them to get frustrated and feel isolated. So make sure you put a calendar invite on your calendar to check in with them quarterly. Just more of a, hey, how you doing kind of call. Nothing formal, but just to let them know that you're there and they can feel the love. The other thing that's important to remember is when you're hiring new employees, always try to get, especially when they're remote, always try to get a try before you buy period, or give them a short project to work on before you make a commitment. Some people flat out lie on their resume. Some people can tell a good story in the resume, some people can tell a good story in the interview, but in reality, they don't have the chops. They don't have the work product. So it's always best to try to test them first and make sure they really, really have the chops. You also want to make sure you pay them well. We pay our virtual employees the same or more than anyone else. So make sure you pay them well and they'll stick around and work hard for you. This is true even if this is an overseas person. I recently just lost one of my great guys that I had in the Philippines. He worked for me for 9 years. So, he didn't work for me for 9 years because I was treating him like a second-rate citizen. He worked for me for 9 years because we treated him like a team member. We paid him well, and he did a good job for us. That's all I want of anyone that works with us. So treat your virtual team members well. But you also want to make sure that they're the right fit for your culture and they're the right fit for virtual work. Not everyone can sit in their house and work. Frankly, I can't. I have to go into the office. I like that ability to mix it up every day, to see what's going on, to kind of distract myself by going to the lunchroom. I'm not sure I'm cut out for working at home. So you have to make sure that the people you hire are actually cut out for that. Do they have a quiet place to work? Do they have children in the house that's going to distract them? Do they have a noisy environment that they live in? Distractions, isolation, these can all be issues when you're working from home. You also want to create a standard onboarding process and education for your new employees. Just like anyone that's working in your office, you want to pay attention to the first 90 days of your remote employees onboarding. That can really mean the difference between a successful employee or one that doesn't fit. And lastly, I would say that you definitely want to put some effort into trying to create friendships with your remote employees, with your staff. So spend some time and money putting together cultural team building type exercises that can work remotely. And there are plenty of them. You don't have to be in person all the time to build a team, but it is helpful. So I would say not only build those virtual relationships, but also, if it's at all possible, get your team together at least once a year to meet in person. Fly them all in, put them up in a hotel, rent a conference room, whatever you have to do, but get everybody together for a day or two to take photographs, to go on a team building exercise, to break bread, and to get to know each other. It'll be well worth your time. So I hope that's helpful. As always, I thank you for tuning in. I know your time is valuable, and I know you have a choice in what you listen to. So I do appreciate that you're listening to the IT Provider Network. If you could do me a favor, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcast, and share this episode with some of your MSP friends. If you know anyone that would benefit from listening to the podcast, that's really the only way I get to spread the word, since I don't do interviews or have anyone out there plugging for me. It's only by you, the listeners, and my efforts that the word gets out about the IT Provider Network. So I do appreciate it. Have yourself a great day. Today is September 11th, 2018. I would be remiss if I didn't remember the terrible tragedies that occurred here in 2001. I remember it like it was yesterday, and my heart goes out to all the fallen people that died that day, the first responders that were so brave. And to the terrorists, go screw yourself. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you've been inspired. Check us out on social media via @ITProviderNet and visit us at www.itprovidernetwork.com for past episodes, show notes, videos, and more. And we hope you'll join Terry next time on the IT Provider Network.